Hey everyone, this is Brian. I'm doing a 400 sub response for Bronko and Kevin over at the Baseball Card Illustrated channel. And they wanted us to spotlight a player that not too many folks collect. And for me, that's J.R. Richards. He played for the Houston Astros from 1971 to 1980. And I got to watch him quite a bit as they spring trained here in Cocoa, Florida at Astro Stadium back in the early 70s. But to give you some idea of what kind of pitcher he was, his very first game that he pitched was the second game of a doubleheader against the Cincinnati Reds, in which he struck out 15 batters. That's the first time anyone has done that since 1954 as their first major league game pitching. J.R. Richards was drafted right out of high school by the Houston Astros in the second round of the 1969 draft. And in 1971, of September 5th, 1971, he made his major league debut, striking out those 15 batters. For 5 seasons in the late 70s, between 1976 and July of 1980, he averaged 17 wins per season, 36 starts, 275 innings of work, 258 strikeouts, and a 2.79 ERA. His fastball was always clocked well above 100 miles per hour, and his slider was usually around 95. J.R. Richards was 6'8" and literally scared opponents, much like Randy Johnson did in his day. Joe Morgan once said he had the greatest stuff I had ever seen, and Joe Morgan was one of his players with him on the Astros. Willie Mays, who faced him for his first time and struck out against him, went back to the bench and was quoted as saying, "He nearly scared me half to death." Unfortunately, in 1980, his career was cut short. J.R. Richards suffered a stroke after the All-Star game. He regained function of the use of his limbs, but was unable to pitch, and his career was over when he was just 30 years old. At that time, Richard was the undisputed star of the Houston Astros rotation, which also included the Hall of Famer Nolan Ryan. Nolan Ryan and J.R. Richards pitched for the Astros during the early 70s together. Nolan Ryan's record at that time, in 1980, was 5-8, 3.4 ERA with 118 strikeouts. J.R. Richards, on the other hand, was 10-4 with a 1.9 ERA and 119 strikeouts. Some wonder how good J.R. Richards might have been had his career not been cut short with a stroke. BaseballReference.com identifies 3 close comparables to Richards, and those 3 players were Steve Busby, Tim Lincecum, and Bob Gibson. As for Busby, he was an ace as well in the early 70s with the Kansas City Royals and was sidelined with an arm injury. He pitched his last game 1 month after J.R. Richards was stricken with the stroke. Tim Lincecum, who was 30 when he helped the Giants win the 2014 World Series, struggled for parts of 2 more seasons before giving up baseball in 2016. Now, Bob Gibson, post-age 30 career, illustrates the other, far more positive possibility. Gibson pitched 9 more seasons, largely productive, winning 139 games against 93 defeats and a solid 2.74 ERA. So this website basically kind of used Gibson as a model, and it said it was plausible to speculate that a healthy Richards might have pitched well into his 30s, and he might have more than doubled his victory total from the 107 that he did win to as many as 245. That total would have put him around the game's most top 50 winners of all time. He might have run up more than 3,600 innings, had a career ERA less than 3, and might have struck out as many as 3,100 opponents. If he would have done that, Richard would have been in the top 15. Of course, it's all speculation as to how things would have worked out for J.R. Richards had he not had the stroke. But one thing they can compare are his strikeout totals across his ERA by looking at the whiffs per inning of work. In his prime, J.R. Richards struck out batters at a rate of 1.6 times the norm for his era. Compare that to modern-day pitchers Chris Sale, Yu Darvish, and Jacob deGrom, who right now are striking out pitchers at 1.2 whiffs per inning. So it cannot be said for certain that Richard, had not been felled by the stroke, would have done roughly what Gibson did in his post 30 years. But one has to wonder. Unfortunately, J.R. Richards passed away on August 4th, 2021. I do have a few of his cards, like I said, beginning with this rookie card, 1972 Astros card. Moving on to this card here, which I've always liked. You can just see how big J.R. was. I mean, 6'8", dominating. And then my Kellogg's card that I have of his, the 79 card, the year before his stroke. And then this one here is the 1978 record breaker for the most strikeouts in a season by a right-hander. And then the 1980 Kellogg's card, his 1980 base card. And then this card here, which basically gives the recap of his career from his college or high school days. And you can see there in 1970 where it says Coco, and that was at the spring training home here in Florida. But in 75 through 1980, you can also see the totals that he racked up for those years. And then the last card of his here was the 1981 Topps Pictured card, which is kind of ironic, unfortunately, because he never really was the pitcher he was after that stroke. But anyways, just wanted to give you guys a look at who I thought could have been one of the greatest pitchers ever had it not been for that stroke. I'll leave a link down below for Bronko and Kevin's site. And if you want to enter the contest again, it's for their 400 sub giveaway. I appreciate you watching. And like I always say, collect like you're a kid.